它已经停了，它那个正式开始的时候会有一个新的地方，然后它会现在退出。刚才是实验测试。你有耳机吗？
Here go, we have wait a couple of minutes. We still waiting some people to join. Thank you for waiting. So the screen for I will pass to you first. Pass to you. Yeah, because you have one access. With the line from the person out, is it?
That's us, yes.
So the people problem from you.
So it will be sure.
Not there on number 3.
So pass to
Julia.
So
Yeah, sorry, that's what I following the run sheet. Yeah.
Just check the name.
Australia, Brisbane.
Amendment to
And we were going to update. Yeah, thank you. So we're going to have a flow. First, we will have our speaker from Hong Kong, Chair of Investment Queensland, Julia Harris. We'll talk about the trade investment updates and post the COVID-19 environment. And then secondly, we will have our speaker from Brisbane, Head of BSMQ, Brisbane and Skill Migration Queensland, Greg McLean. And also update about the business visa change policy as an overall of investors migration situation. And then we have a partner, Boston Carlo law firm from Brisbane, Jared Ford. He will speak about the tips and pros and cons for setting the office in Queensland. And the last one, myself, will go through about our company, our background of regional migration, and some successful case of 2020 on global talent migration case. So and now I will turn to the speaker, to Julia Harris from Hong Kong. Thank you.
Thank you, Dixon. I hope everyone can hear me all right, and welcome everybody. My name is Julia Harris. I'm the Queensland Trade and Investment Commissioner for Hong Kong and Macau, and it's a great pleasure to be here to speak with you all. First of all, I'd like to pass sincere thanks to Dixon and his team at Regent Migration, and also to our colleagues at Rostrum Carlyle Rojas, Gerard Thorpe, Special Counsel, and also Shannon Lee and Varun for organizing this as well. We're very grateful for the cooperation. I have on the presentation as well, my colleague Greg McKean, who is manager of the Business and Skilled Migration Queensland team. Greg is based in Brisbane, and he will be presenting to you after myself. Also later on, his colleague Lin Han, one of his team, will also be presenting on the specific visa options for Queensland. Shanley, next slide, please. So as Dixon said, I'm going to give you a brief overview now of the COVID situation in Queensland, and also some of the sectors and available options for investment into Queensland. So vis-a-vis COVID, thanks to a fast-acting and a responsible government, plus community operation in lockdowns and social distancing, we in Queensland are very fortunate to have only 17 active cases at the moment and no community transmission. In total, we've had 1,519 cases. And while one is always too many, we have had 7 deaths, which relatively speaking, compared to many, many other places in the world, is a positive situation. So, and most of the outbreaks are from hotel quarantine infections to some of our medical health workers and medical professionals. In general, overall, during the COVID 1+ year period, Queenslanders have been blessed to be able to continue their lives in a relatively normal way. And as is the case in a number of different parts of Australia. And in fact, in Australia, there are only 180 active cases overall currently. I believe there have been something in the region of 30,000 cases since the pandemic began. As with everybody around the world, our economy in Queensland has also been affected negatively by the long lockdowns last year, which had, and the international as well as the domestic border closures, which had a great impact, especially on trade and investment. Our goods were not able to exit the country, and nor were our people, and likewise they were unable to. So this particularly impacted the export of our commodities sectors, including coal and LNG, as well as all tourism sector, the hospitality and the education sectors. All these are critical to the Australian economy as a whole, and Queensland in particular, which is very strong in all those sectors. However, we're pleased at the moment to see good shoots of recovery. Unemployment rates are falling to 7.5%, and there's growth in Queensland housing prices, which is always a positive sign, as well as job advertisements. And finally, our vaccination program is starting to roll out. We've had 131,000 odd vaccinations delivered so far, and that will be obviously continuing in the weeks and months ahead. Next slide, please. So, as well as the positive signs in the COVID story, I'd also like to talk a little bit about the different sectors, which are strengths of our economy in Queensland. We have a diverse range, especially also for investment opportunities, and those are shown on the screen now. Food and agribusiness, we have a lot of premier products that you may or may not know about, or perhaps will take for granted. We are #1 in beef in Australia. We also have a tremendous amount of fruits and vegetables, especially premium products, which are sold here in Hong Kong supermarkets, which come from across our state. In addition, we are very, very strong in mining and resources, some of the rare earth minerals, as well as the traditional coal and iron ore products that have been that our industry has been centered on for many, many decades. Tourism is another key area for us. We have, as you will know, the Great Barrier Reef, and we have a number of key centers which are particularly attractive to Hong Kong tourists, including the Gold Coast, Cairns, and Brisbane itself, which is having a tremendous amount of investment by the Queensland government to augment its attractions as a city. And there are major projects underway. The other sector I wanted to highlight was international education, obviously tremendously impacted by the inability for students to travel. However, we have a great range of schools and also universities in Queensland, which have long had very strong connections to Hong Kong. We've attracted many students into Queensland who've gone on to either careers in the state or Australia as a whole, or have returned to Hong Kong to pursue their career plan. We've asked our education arm of the government, Study Queensland, has done a terrific job in serving students who were in Queensland already. And we will continue to focus on making sure that they are well looked after and catered to. And we are also launching, or many schools and also universities have launched online programs to support students who cannot reach Australia currently during this lockdown period. We have very active health and knowledge and technology industries, doing everything from vaccine to in the health sector to ag tech to drone development to smart city initiatives. So there's an awful lot going on in the tech, health and knowledge industries, which are very vibrant. And we also have a number of clusters across different cities throughout the state, which can support companies which are coming in and would like to start entering the Australian market, or simply serving the Queensland state market as well. The other area I wanted to highlight was energy. We have a number of very large energy renewable projects in particular, and also as well as the traditional commodities and other and traditional energy sources as well. We have been fortunate to have a stable economy for a long time. And we also have a very diversified and well-distributed number of population. We've got 5 major cities of between 100 and 200,000 people. We have efficient infrastructure. We've got 6 international airports, and we also have a very attractive cost of living base. We have much more affordable cost of living and housing prices than other major conurbations, for example, vis-a-vis Brisbane versus other states, which can be very attractive if you're looking to set up your business and also have a good quality of life in Australia. We are known as the international gateway to Asia Pacific, especially from our northern entry port of Cairns, as well as Brisbane. And finally, but last but not least, we are known as the Sunshine State. We have a pretty attractive climate, an enviable climate with 300 days of sunshine. And so all in all, I think we have a very attractive, positive outlook. We welcome inbound investors to Queensland and new immigrants to Queensland to set up in the state, grow their business and expand, also using Queensland as a platform for their global expansion. So I'm going to now turn over to my colleague Greg in the Business and Skill Migration Queensland team to really take a deeper dive into the different business and skill migration visa options which Queensland in particular can offer. Thanks, and over to you, Greg.
Thank you, Julia, and appreciate all your support as always sitting over there in Hong Kong. As Julia said, interesting times for migration in Australia and in Queensland in particular as well. The whole COVID process, some would think might have had a debilitating effect on migration coming into Queensland itself. In fact, that's been quite the opposite. We've had an enormous increase in interest this year. Our quota was increased from 670 positions in last financial year, up to 1,200 in the 2021 financial year. So a significant increase, and I'm very happy to say that we've already filled those 1,200 places. So I think people looking for other areas of the world to invest and to make a lifestyle for himself are quite quickly, as Julia said, seeing Australia and particularly Queensland, given our record with the COVID pandemic, as being a very attractive place for their families to come, for their kids to go to school, and for them to invest in all the different range of industries that Julia just outlined then. So from my perspective, it's been a very busy year. From my team's perspective, they're working very hard still. The interesting point we see from the numbers that have come in this year, as I said, a significant increase in our quota. A great majority of that has been filled with mainland China and Hong Kong people. So I think that will continue in the coming years, and we certainly welcome business migrants from there, as Julia mentioned. Okay, so just getting back to the presentation a little bit. As Julia said, I'm Greg McKean, the manager for Business and Skill Migration Queensland. We are the state government nominating body to the Commonwealth Government for a range of business visas, and also we have a skilled visa program as well. Thank you. Next slide. Next slide. Now, 2021 proves to be a big year for changes in the migration program. We will see a number of visas drop off and a number have continued but changed. For our current program, we are still nominating for the 132, although we have only one more week before that visa does disappear and becomes abolished from the program. The remaining visas that you can see there, the 188 suite of business visas, will be the ones going forward. Now, the difference between them, the 132 was a permanent visa. You got permanent residency straight away, whereas the 188 suite of visas. They are a 4-year provisional visa that transfers to PR at the end. But there are changes coming up for that one even, which I'll go into on the next slide. Thank you. So as I mentioned, the 132 business, the program will be reduced from 9 to 4 visa streams. So continuing will be the 188A, the business innovation visa, the 188E, the entrepreneur visa, the 188B, the investor visa, and the 188C, significant investor visa. The programs that are closed basically now are the premium investor visa, the significant business history 132, and also the venture capital entrepreneur 132. Basically, those visas now are closed, and you won't be able to apply for a residency visa from that point forward. The benefit that the Commonwealth has put on the 188 program now is the 188 suite of visas will be a 5-year visa, provisional visa. However, if you meet the requirements of the permanent residency requirements after 3 years, you can apply for PR. So effectively, you're gaining 1 extra year from the current arrangement in the 188. And also, the extensions will be still available for the business innovation and the SIV, so that if you don't meet all of your requirements in the period, you can roll over your investment, your visa, and have it extended for a certain period of time. Next slide, please. Other changes. The Commonwealth have seen to increase the thresholds for the 188 Business Innovation Program. Minimum net assets now will be 1.25, up from 800,000 previously. Annual turnover must be around 750,000, up from 500,000 previously. As we still have not got all of the regulation through in this particular visa category yet, we have not finalise the Queensland criteria, but that will be done in the coming months for a 1 July start with the new program. Another interesting change is the entrepreneur visa, the 188E. Beforehand, or currently, there's a 200,000 venture capital funding threshold that will be scrapped and replaced by an endorsement of the project that the entrepreneur will do by the state government or the different jurisdiction, in this case, the Queensland government. Now, as I mentioned, there's a whole raft of regulation that has to underpin that will be announced shortly. Most probably the regulation will be approved during the Commonwealth budget process on the 11th of May. And once that budget is approved, then I'm sure all the new frameworks will be announced to the public and also to ourselves, so that we can prepare ourselves for a 1 July start with the new business environment. Next slide, please. One of the common questions, one of the common questions that, oh, sorry, no, that was right, the graph, yeah. One of the common questions that's always asked me is, what do business migrants invest in Queensland? And Julia highlighted all the major ones previously, but our top selling industry would be in wholesale, actually. So what the wholesale is a particular migrant might have a special supply chain within their own country, and then they would use that supply chain. They would purchase Queensland product, and most probably it's in the food and agribusiness sector, and they would use that supply chain to start an import-export business. So very popular with our business migrants who especially in business beforehand. They have all the systems set up. The benefit for our local agribusiness community is that they have a ready-made export manager to make sure their produce gets to the right customer on the other side very efficiently. So that's our biggest investment that the migrants make. After that, we have retail businesses. We have construction, always very popular. Growing this year was manufacturing. So manufacturing was really quite a small amount, maybe 1 or 2%, up to 6% this year. So that's a very encouraging sign for our manufacturing sector. Accommodation and food, that would normally be about double the size of 6%, normally be about 12%, but obviously with the COVID restrictions, the tourism industry, even in Australia, has suffered somewhat. So there'll be a bit of recovery required there before the tourism and food and beverage industry takes off again. Also increasing is the professional and scientific technical services, transport and logistics. Once again, very encouraging sides for our broad economy and the Queensland economy going forward. So productively, the investment that business migrants bring in is going quite broadly across the business sectors. Obviously that's great for where we have the entrepreneur visa that encourages new technologies, entrepreneurs from around the world to come and invest here in Queensland. We want them to bring their technology and their experience and their own supply chains from wherever they come from. So we look forward to seeing that whole knowledge-based industries area grow significant over the coming period. Just to give you an indication of what all of that investment into Queensland is, so that was up to March this year. If all of those visas are approved, approximately $1.5 billion worth of investment will flow into Queensland over the next 12 to 18 months, right? COVID willing, of course. But that's a significant program. It's a significant program that underpins industry development here in Queensland. And we look forward to people from Hong Kong and further afield to add to that in our next year's program starting on the 1st of July. Next slide, thanks. And countries from this year, you can see China is our biggest one. For the last 2 or 3 years, actually, China was under about 50%, sort of around about the 40–45%. Other nationalities have grown over the last 5 years. Vietnam in particular, Middle East has really taken off from a very low point. But the interesting one is actually Hong Kong. Hong Kong has grown from about 3% in our last year's figures up to 13% for this year. And I think by the time we actually finish the program of all of the this year, that percentage will even grow even more. So Hong Kong has featured now as our second biggest market after China. Next slide, please. We also encourage investment into our regional centres around Queensland. Obviously, Brisbane makes up the greater majority at the moment, around 70-odd%. Around 30% does go into regional Queensland, and no surprise, the biggest centres there, Gold Coast, Sunshine Coast, sort of make up the Great Southeast. Investment into agribusiness will see that proportion of regional investment grow considerably, I think, over the next 5 years as a lot of production comes online, as a lot of investment comes into Queensland itself in the agribusiness sector, that percentage will grow significantly. Next slide, thank you. While we're not talking about our skilled visa program in this session, I just wanted to quickly highlight our 491 regional small business owners visa. So for participants on the line that might have children, might have their children studying here in Queensland already, this is a very popular pathway. So the 491 is a regional skilled visa. And instead of actually having to find employment after they have got their 2 to 3 years of work rights in Australia, they can actually start up their own business. So they can purchase a business here in Queensland for a minimum $100,000 and they can run that business themselves and they can get to their permanent residency in that way. The beauty about this program is that it's opened up to occupations across the whole of the Commonwealth skilled occupation list. So proving to be very popular, and very popular if you have your kids studying here in Australia right now. Next slide, thanks. We do a number of investment roadshows here in Queensland. The next one will be up in the Townsville, Burdekin area up in North Queensland in about 6 weeks' time. If you have associates, or you have business migrants here in Australia already who might be interested in that, please get in touch with Julia in her office there, or myself in our office in Brisbane here. We'd love to have you attend for that. Next slide, thanks. So I've been through, probably the biggest change in the next thing for us, we'll be doing a name change. The mouthful of Business and Skilled Migration Queensland will transfer to being Migration Queensland. Next slide. And that's what our new logo will look like. And our new website is currently being finalised as we speak. So within the next sort of 2 to 4 weeks, we'll be launching the new brand that is Migration Queensland. And so that ends my part of the process here. Thank you for listening to me. If you have any questions, please direct through Dixon or through Julia, or directly to myself here in Brisbane. We'd only be happy to help you in your migration perspective. Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Greg. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to sunny Brisbane. I'm speaking to you from level 16 of our office here in the centre of Brisbane City. I have my colleagues here who you cannot see, I believe. Alicia Lin from the Business Law section, Varun Gupta and Shanali Jopal from our Migration Law section. So today I was just going to cover a few areas where, as business people setting up a business in Queensland, you may wish to be aware of now before you set upon that journey. We would welcome talking to any of you about your specific objectives. And of course, there are many laws in Queensland and Australia that you will need to be aware of. So I am not giving any specific advice. I am simply informing you of a few general areas that most of you who start businesses in Queensland will need to address. In the main, if you start a business in Queensland, then there is no foreign investment laws which will restrict you or for which you will need to gain approval. The exception to that is if you're a government investor or investing in a sector like the media or defence, or sometimes in the manufacturing sector. If you are a manufacturer or in hospitality, for example, or in agriculture, you should be aware that there may be specific licenses that you'll need to obtain from the state government to be able to carry on the operations of that business. Similarly, if you are engaging in employing staff, which most businesses are, you'll need to be aware of the employment laws and the workplace health and safety laws, and they are quite detailed. If you're a manufacturer here, you'll need to become informed and aware of all the product liability laws. And similarly, if you're involved in selling to customers, be aware of the obligations under the Australian Consumer Law. I will not be discussing any of those in detail today. As far as foreign investment regulation, as I said, in the main, if you're starting a business from the start in Queensland, you do not have to obtain any foreign investment approval. However, if you proceed to buy a business in Australia or buy a share of a company or buy real estate, then you need to be aware that there are detailed foreign investment thresholds and rules that you'll need to investigate, and if required, seek the approval of the Foreign Investment Review Board. In the main, Australia and Queensland welcome investment in Australian land companies and businesses. One of the key decisions you'll have to make before starting a business in Queensland will be whether you operate under a business organisation structure of a company or trust, joint venture or partnership. I won't go into all the details now in respect of those various options, but I will say that in the main, private investors will set up private companies in Queensland. The company is a very familiar legal structure and is quite simple to conduct and is well recognised in business by financiers and other businesses. Trusts are a particular aspect of English law, which is a legal obligation where a trustee owns the business or the assets legally for the benefit of the beneficiaries. It is common businessmen in Queensland who have families may set up a family or discretionary trust for its tax benefits and ability to protect the business assets from the trading of the business. A third business structure is that of a joint venture. Unincorporated joint ventures are very common in the mining and resources sector, and incorporated joint ventures are very common in property development. An incorporated joint venture is effectively a company where the shareholders are carrying on the joint venture. A few things to note if you're establishing a private company is that in Australia it requires one resident of Australia as a director and one shareholder who can be foreign. Before establishing a company in Queensland, you need to decide upon the name and investigate whether that name is available. In Queensland and all of Australia, for that matter, when you establish a company, that company will be given an identifier number as an Australian company number. That ACN is the identity of the company and has to be displayed on all company documents, checks and invoices. In addition to the Australian company number, there is the Australian business number, which is given to a company when it's registered for the purposes of taxation. It is the Australian government's identifier of your company in respect of lodging tax returns, claiming goods and services tax, as an example. You should also have a registered office within Australia. I've set up there a table of various advantages and disadvantages of running a business in a company, trust, incorporated joint venture or unincorporated joint venture. We don't have time today to go through that, but I invite you to look at that after the presentation, if it's of interest to you, as I understand the slides we've made available. The point of putting that up is to show you that it is a critical thing for you and your lawyers and accountants to ensure that the structure is set up correctly to suit your own personal circumstances and what you want to achieve in respect of tax, business protection, and generally being able to carry on the business. In Australia, there are directors' duties which are established under the common law and in addition set out in the main company legislation, the Corporations Act. I won't go through them today because we do not have time, but I will point out that one of the significant duties on directors is to prevent the company from trading while insolvent. I've just been informed that my slides are not being presented, so I apologise for that, but they will be made available after the presentation. Again, just outlining some of the taxes that will be relevant for you to understand when establishing a business in Australia is that of income tax, currently at 27.5% for smaller businesses and 30% for other businesses. There's capital gains tax, which is payable on income, which is triggered by the sale of various assets. Goods and services tax, which is like a value-added tax. And it's important to understand how goods and services tax impacts you as a business owner, because it is a broad tax of 10% that can be relevant for business sales and property transactions. So it is a transparent tax, and it is you're able to claim the tax back that you paid at one end as a recipient on the other. But again, it's something you'll need detailed advice about. There are various withholding taxes. I think you might be able to see the slide that I'm talking to at the moment. Withholding taxes for payment of interest and other royalty payments from Australia to overseas parties. That's a 10% tax. There is also fringe benefits tax paid by employers here on non-cash compensation paid to their employees. Apologies. There's payroll tax paid by employees based on the amount of wages and salaries that's payable to state governments. In most states of Australia, there is stamp duty payable in respect of the purchase of land or business assets or shares in land-rich companies. Land tax is payable on most property owned other than your home. And also the local bodies, the local councils will impose rates on property owners. I've put up a slide showing an example of a business structure that we've seen a client use. Again, there are many examples, and it's very important for you to get advice regarding your personal circumstances. But here we have a family business that ran a winery, and they set up the business so that there was a separate company as the trading company, and that company is owned by the trust, the family trust, and the family trust owns the land, factory, trademarks, and stock. And the reason that would be done is to separate the risks in the trading company, dealing with customers, for example, and under the Australian laws and dealing with suppliers, and put those risks away from any ability of one of those other parties to attack the business assets of the land and the winery and the trademarks. So that is a conversation you'll have with lawyers and accountants to try as much as possible to isolate your business income from your business assets. Also, with the use of trust, there's a mechanism where you can let the company carry on as a trustee-owned company by the sale or gift of shares in the company trustee. As I said, foreign investment regulation is an important aspect if you're looking to purchase a business or a company or part of a business or company, and also if you're buying land. The Foreign Investment Review Board will advise the Treasurer of Australia, who makes the decision, and will monitor any of the conditions of the approval that's been given. Again, if in most sectors, if you are establishing a business from the start, you will not need any foreign investment approval. Intellectual property assets clearly are a very key component of any serious business. And in Australia, we have a very vigorous and broad regime to protect intellectual property rights, including patents, copyright, designs, and most relevantly for most private businesses, trademarks. Australia is a member of the Madrid Protocol, so there is a mechanism if you're registering trademarks in Australia to be able to, by filing in Australia, gain registration of those trademarks in other countries. In the main, a trademark will protect your brand and logo, and we always suggest that if you trade under a name and you have a logo, that you both register the name and the logo as a device, and you get twofold protection. By registering a trademark, you will get protection for 10 years, and that registration can be renewed for another 10 years or indefinitely. As a business person, effectively, you have no protection in a name in Australia against competitors or other people who may be using your name without first registering it as a trademark. It's important to be aware that if you are operating a business in Australia with partners within a company, that you have a shareholders agreement. That is the ability of the partners to be able to set out exactly what they want done as far as how the directors will manage the company, how the shareholders have a right to sell shares or keep the shares within the original shareholders. What will happen if a shareholder breaches the terms of the agreement? It will set out the confidentiality obligations that will protect the intellectual property of the business, and also set out non-compete obligations to prevent the exiting owner of the business from going off, taking all the customers and setting up a competing business or poaching employees. It also is an opportunity to set out what happens if there's a deadlock and the directors and shareholders cannot agree on the business decisions. You should also be aware that if your business is one of distributing or franchising, that there is particular laws about that in Australia called the Franchising Code of Conduct. Similarly, if you are involved in selling products and services to Australian consumers, there's sections of the Australian Consumer Law that you'll need to educate yourself about or obtain advice about. That really finishes what I'd like to say about some aspects of the legal framework that you will need to be available. Here, what we get involved in on a daily basis is advising business migrants, first of all, in the process of obtaining their visa. Secondly, once they're on board in Australia, all the rules and regulations they need to be aware of. We can advise regarding the legal framework, set up your key documents, protect your intellectual property and branding, advise how to negotiate with suppliers and customers, and set up your terms and conditions. What we've been able to do in recent years is build up a good network of other professionals that we know, whether that's business brokers, accountants, financiers, business advisors, etc., that we can introduce you to, who may be key advisors for you in both establishing your business, growing it, and possibly exiting it one day. We see ourselves as slightly different from a lot of lawyers in that we would like to add value to you and your businesses and bring ideas and opportunities to the table, so that if we know of any opportunities that are available through other clients or other people we know that may be a good fit for you, we would obviously pass that on. because we see it as our duty to not just be lawyers in your initial establishment in Australia and also for your transactions, but we want to be long-term advisors and stick with you as you grow your business. So, ladies and gentlemen, that concludes my talk today. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Last slide. Can you see this slide? Okay, thank you so much. Yeah, today we have a very good speaker. Yeah, region migration. We are formed from 201A from Queensland. Our team have different professional lawyers as well as from our agency. We are very sincere and our heart to help everyone from Asia, particularly from Hong Kong, China, Macau, and Taiwan, Asia. People coming to lovely Sunshine City in Australia as well as Queensland. Our company focus on Global Talent Independent Program. Now they call the Distinguished Visa A5A, and also the Global Business Attraction Task Force, the new policy. And we also focus on business innovation, entrepreneur, investor, significant investor type of visa. They also call the 1A series A, E, C, and B. We also do temporary skill storage visa 4A2, temporary graduate visa 4A5 for students, and also the new update here is a 491, just to mention the small business and the SMO visa. From last year, 2020, we are working closely on the Global Talent Independent Program. Global Talent Independent Program very focused on high technology and talent expert. We have very honor able to help some Asian people, but most of them from Hong Kong, successfully granted from last year's program. The program details were also listed in the Global Australia website. Since last year, the program has an increase of more Canada quota. From 2021, they have 15,000 days available. Our objective is also aligned with Australia. They're going to transform to focus on more innovative, new talent, technology economy, to transform the idea to be creating more value and job in Queensland and Australia. In order to eligible for under program, we will also closely meet with every single applicant to review their skills and their existing project as well as their profile in Asia. We will also work closely with our tech consultant to suggest and advise them of the good profile to submit for the GTI program. There's several criteria already listed about the global talent they require for international recognition, and they attract very high income worker, just like under the FWIT. They also require about 153,600. This is the standard requirement. Our talent team will work with every single applicant to provide the analysis and study, provide profile in order to submit to the government. So I will explain more detail in the case about candidate they do not have fulfill of the criteria of 133,000, but however, actually, it's a different country, different salary analysis. Ultimately, they get a success. This is a new structure of global talent focus of different stream. From last year, they have 7 sector, increasing to 10 sector. It's all distributed through environment manufacturing, health and life science sector, financial services, enable sector such as tourism, education, and infrastructure. As always, of science, of cyber science, biotech, data science, material science, and robotics. Now, I will have a sharing about one of our case last year. A Hong Kong candidate, he is age 46. He has a 25 years experience in the field of banking and IT. Initially, his salary not fulfill 133,600, but this is from Hong Kong. And we reviewed carefully about his background. He's a very long-term experience in ICT and also fintech, specific on develop fast rate payment from the bank. So we review and we revise for the case and do a fair market analysis. We presenting to the global talent officer. The officer reviewed and gave them a chance and offer the EOI as well as continues to submit the supporting document in 4 months, within 4 months. Yeah, he got the visa. This is a typical case when we say candidate may not be initially fulfill a certain criteria, but because of different country on salary different measurement benchmark, but unless they actually on very high talent and market benchmark in Australia. So we will provide our analysis and carefully review of the case. So this is one of the testimony of Mr. Leung. He finally came and sent me a reference and witness statement. Mostly, he just want to highlight is our professional advance and hard and help them to work on their profile and take care. As well as when they come to Australia, we also helping them to find school, some residential rental, and they settle down with peaceful. Because when they landed, they still have lots of worry about all the new country and new city. So it's an email they sent to me. I so thank you for the appreciation. This is our company contact. We have an office in Brisbane headquarters. We also have an office in Hong Kong. So welcome to contact us by email, by WeChat, as well as my WhatsApp phone number. So now I would like to turn on for Q&A session, and we have several people on reading this. I received an email from a gentleman. He would like to ask about question about the 1AA series, the waiting time. I would like to share my Sharon Lawyers for Lawson College. About
just about processing times?
Yes.
Yes, so there has been some indication as we've been discussing, I think Greg touched on the new requirements that will come about from 1st of July. We're hoping that these new requirements will bring with them reduced processing times for the business and investor visa program in its entirety. This is something that has been discussed. It's not something that has been implemented at this stage. We will know more in the new financial year, but it's an exciting prospect when considering the new changes that are coming to the program.
I believe our colleagues from PSMQ also online. If you have any question, you can unmute your line and ask directly to our officer. You also can text us in the chat box. We can take the question one by one.
Yeah, hello. This is Lynn from Business and Skill Migration Queensland. Yes, for the Queensland State nomination for the 188C significant investor visa, our processing time is really quick. It can be done in 1 day. So there's no problem for us for the processing for the state nomination, but the visa processing within the immigration can be extended longer.
We have one candidate asking a question about the 188E application starting from July 1st. What are the criteria to receive state government nomination?
I missed out your first bit. Is which visa subclass you're talking about?
So this one's the 188E.
Oh, 188E, entrepreneur. Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
From the state government level, at this stage, we didn't get further detailed information from Home Affairs yet. So we know as much as everybody's know, and immigration hasn't. Where is it? Immigration hasn't gave the more detailed framework of the whole visa requirement or criteria. They haven't been published on the immigration website, so we don't know yet. So hopefully it may have some more detailed, concrete, things coming out after we're hoping and expecting from after the budget. So let's keep and see whether there will be more information coming out of the budget.
Just move to the chat box now. See. Okay. So if you have any questions,
Thank you.
Please unmute and then you can ask and text us. This is a good opportunity to ask questions directly to the office. Can you mute your line if you have any question? Maybe I have a question for Lynn.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, we know that the new policy will change July 1st. The 188A, the increasing of investment amount as well as the turnover. What is a specific for the person assets or maybe the business investment? How to distinguish the amount of 1.27 million?
You're talking about 188E as well? Because I can't hear you properly. It's very weak voice. I can't hear you properly from here.
So Dixon, if you just speak into that one.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. I said different. Yeah, but 188A. Yeah. The new policy will require a different investment amount now. So will you share about how much will be invested to company or how much will be for the rest of the amount to fulfill the total?
As I just said, we don't have exactly the more detailed information from Immigration Home Affairs yet. So we don't know really exactly how this, what's the changes going to be in terms of their total investment or what kind of a business investment framework. Basically, you can say from Immigration Minister announcement, they're only talking about $200,000 from the management fund from the third party will be abolished. That's it. They don't give you any detailed information in regards to what kind of a proposed, like a new ideas, how this going to be, this program going to be work if that 200,000 management fund funding from management or the third party will be abolished, and who is going to contribute to that, startup cost. And there's no idea at this stage until immigration give us further guideline. Will be based on that. State government will work out what our criteria going to be. But there's one thing is clear this time. This particular visa category requires state government to be endorsed. It has to go through the endorsement from a particular state government. And immigration also encouraged state government to looking at South Australia CESAR program, which is a pilot program been operating for the last few years within the South Australia. So that can be using a model to roll out across over the whole of other states and territories. So we are currently, we had the first meeting today with all the Queensland other department, including innovation, employment, and we try to get together with within the departments, and Department of Innovation also they involve into Advanced Queensland Innovative Task Force, and also they have a chief entrepreneurs, a chief scientist. They all involved into innovation. So we try to put together as a strategic partnership and try to set up guidelines or the framework, basically to targeting a specific industry which really innovate, and we will get some advice and comments from expertise in the particular industry, and so that based on that we will get some concrete outcomes, and that will be using for our future guidelines or as strategic policies for the 188E.
Yes, and Lynn, will that be coming into effect possibly in the new financial year as well? Or?
Yeah, that's where we're aiming to. That's why we're starting from now on, and we have to put up something into concrete, and then it will go through all the approval system because it's related to the several different departments involved, and it could be involved some industry incubators or expertise also involved. So that has to go through all the departmental approval in the end. Hopefully, once everything's ready, it will be announced on the 1st of July. But yeah, that's our aim.
And just back to Dixon's original question was in regards to the 188A, so the Business Innovation Visa.
Oh, I thought it was talking about 188E.
That's okay. I was thinking you might not know this at this stage either. It might be the same response, but in terms of the increased monetary thresholds for asset requirement for the innovation visa, has Queensland determined the amount in terms of investment into the business that is required from those assets at this stage?
Yes, okay. Definitely. Because that's normally when immigration, have some significant changes or, the core reform of the visa categories, every state does the same thing based on the immigration criteria changes. So we are currently working on to put all our potential criteria together, and to say we do a bit of a data analysis based on the last few years, and we will see what's the optional or potential opportunities for maybe change some of the criteria for based on our current business innovation one. And of course, we need to get more advice from other like the DESP, Queensland Department of Employment and Skill Employment, because they are our policy arm. In the end, any policy changes has to go to them and has to get approval from the minister.
Of course.
So what I can tell you is currently we're working on it, and hopefully it goes through all the department approval process, and hopefully it will be announced available on the 1st of July.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Lynn. We have one question from the chat box. You mentioned about how much investment to invest in, how much money invested in Australia in order to get the one AAC, something like that. Because I cannot see the whole footage. Invest in Australia, how much money can immigrate? Something.
Invest in Australia, how much money what? They can bring in? No?
I believe it's in regards to the significant investor visa, is that correct?
Or SIV.
SIV and the amount of funds required to invest.
Okay.
Program.
Yeah, that's very simple. It's just 5 million investment into the management fund. That's the current criteria from the Home Affairs. But after 1st of July, we don't know yet how much it's going to be, well, what level of changes will be. That's Home Affairs would put up, maybe leverage, you know, I don't know, what's the compliant investment going to be. It may increasing the total thresholds or the compliant investment, or it may change the investment framework of the compliant investment. But so far, we haven't got more detailed information from immigration yet, so we can't comment for that.
Okay. One more last question about the GTI. I know the GTI total different department to award, but most of the talent, if you're interested in Queensland, they apply for the GTI. Would they able to set up their own business in Queensland in order to create more self-employed opportunity as well as investment, just like investment in Australia to creating more opportunity for himself?
So the Global Talent Program is not state sponsored. It's a program set up for people with internationally recognized outstanding achievements. They certainly can come here and do what they would like, but they need to first be able to obtain a unique identifier code through an expression of interest process to be able to lodge the visa itself. Processing of the visa is quite quick, and then once that is processed, they can obviously come here and start their life here, whether it be starting a business or contributing their knowledge and expertise to some industry in the state that they choose to reside in. But first they would need to undertake the process of lodging the expression of interest and explaining why they are of the caliber of standard that the program is seeking.
Thank you. So thank you so much. I think we don't have much more questions from the chat box. We are very honored to have Julia Harris from Hong Kong share about the trade investment environment and the support to Queensland, and also Lin Han and Greg from BSMQ, Business Migration Queensland, and also trained to person to change in migration Queensland. The sharing and the Q&A. And thank you so much for the Q&A about the business setup and also the environment in Queensland. And thank you for the audience. I think today we have a good result. And if anyone have question, so you can send to our email and also contact us. And we can love to support any needs to fulfill your trip to Queensland. Thank you so much.
Very much so. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dixon. Thank you, Julia. Thank you, Lynn.
Thanks, Lynn.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you so much. So we enjoy the close of the event.
Look forward to seeing you in Queensland.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Thanks, Julia.
Welcome. Thank you, Gerald.